The 1962 World's Fair welcomed the majesty of the ill-fated bounty. A futuristic Century 21 theme famously fueled the Seattle World's Fair in 1962, but a fleeting off-site attraction paid homage to Century 18. Greeted by rocket salvos, fireboat spray, and the cheers of thousands, a majestic blue and gold sailing ship, emblematic of Great Britain in 1789, plied Elliott Bay beneath a gleaming sun. The floating storybook nestled at then Pier 51, site of today's State Ferry Terminal, alongside the just-opened Polynesia restaurant. It was the HMS Bounty, not the original, but a largely true-to-life replica built in 1960 for use in a cinematic remake of Mutiny on the Bounty, the saga of a high-profile shipboard revolt. The 118-foot clone, made 33 feet longer than its namesake to accommodate bulky cameras, docked June 22nd at the Polynesia, where 10-year-old Bob Bunch and his parents from the Three Tree Point Peninsula of Burien climbed aboard. The lashings, the masts, and what seemed like miles of rope going up and down, all of it was terribly impressive, Bunch says. I was always reading stories of pirates and the Navy, and I remember thinking it would be a total adventure to go for a sail on that thing in the ocean. The images never left me. The next 5.5 days, the replica welcomed visitors at the Port of Seattle's Shoal Bay Marina, interrupted only by an excursion through the Ballard Locks to Lake Washington. On its opening weekend, the vessel took on a staggering 38,871 people. Though linked to the fair, the ship's Seattle stop was literally a Hollywood promotional vehicle. The 1935 Oscar Best Picture winner, Mutiny on the Bounty, starring Clark Gable and Charles Laughton, had been a TV perennial since 1956, but its 3-hour MGM remake with Marlon Brando and Trevor Howard, a notoriously bloated production partly filmed in Tahiti, would not open until 6 months after the vessel's Seattle visit. The newer movie cost $20 million, $215 million today, of which $750,000, $8 million, financed the replica. However, the clone's sojourn to Seattle and around North America didn't right the cinematic ship. The remake's winter holiday run tanked, losing $6 million, $65 million. The replica, for decades an East Coast mainstay, expired in 2012, swallowed by Hurricane Sandy, just as the original Bounty perished in a South Seas fire some 220 years earlier. Nevertheless, the allure endures. The power and romance of these ships is timeless, says Noah Waldman, owner and captain of the Seattle waterfront-based tour vessel Bay Lady. They always activate our imaginations. You can feel what it was like to be a sailor in the age of sail. In our first then photo, constructed for a movie remake, the Bounty replica drew tens of thousands of visitors to its berth at the Port of Seattle's Shoal Bay Marina, June 23rd to 28th, 1962, during the Seattle World's Fair. The original Bounty, built in 1784, was destroyed some 6 years later by fire and sank in the South Seas. In our second then photo, a tug nudges the Bounty replica to then Pier 51, near the just-opened Polynesia restaurant on June 22, 1962. Dave Cohn, a restaurant owner, offered MGM $800,000 to $1 million to buy and retain it as a waterfront attraction, but MGM declined. The Polynesia closed in 1981, making way for a State Ferry Terminal expansion. In our third then photo, Bob Bunch with his dad Bob, circa 1962. In our fourth then photo, a girl tries the wheel of the replica as a crowd tours it in June 1962 at Shoal Bay Marina. In our fifth then photo, sailors on the replica relax during its June 1962 Seattle visit. A 10-year-old at the time, Bob Bunch, today of Roslyn, recalls their correct garb. They looked like they were islanders. In our sixth then photo, the stern of the replica in June 1962 at Shilshole Bay Marina. The original Bounty was named for the plentiful South Seas breadfruit plants that it sought for enslaved people on British plantations in the Caribbean. In our seventh then photo, a sign posted aboard the replica at Shilshole in June 1962 explains its background. In our eighth then photo, welcomed by the Seattle fireboat Duwamish in June 1962, the Bounty replica crosses Elliott Bay. That week, tall ships from Japan, the Nippon Maru and Kaiwo Maru, and Chile, the Esmeralda, also visited Seattle. In our ninth then photo, visitors prepared aboard the Bounty replica June 23 to 28, 1962, at Shilshole Bay Marina. No Seattle-based photos show the replica in full sail, likely because while its 10,000 square feet of hand-sewn canvas could harness wind power, it was propelled by two 375-horsepower John Deere diesel engines. In our 10th then photo, a tug nudges the Bounty replica to then Pier 51, today's State Ferry Terminal, near the just-opened Polynesia restaurant on June 22, 1962. In our 11th then photo, the Bounty replica eases through the Ballard Locks in 1962 on its way to Lake Washington. The photographer's son, Bill Whitbeck, 9 at the time, and from Connecticut, was visiting family with his parents. 2 years later, he saw the same replica at the New York World's Fair. And in our final then photo, the Chase sisters, Jenny 3 and Katie 2, then of Bellevue, pose on the deck of the Bounty replica June 23rd to 27th at Shilshole Bay Marina. Today, the 85-foot Bay Lady, center right, stands or sails in for the Bounty replica, close to the same spot it occupied June 23rd to 28th, 1962, at the Port of Seattle's Shilshole Bay Marina. For more info on the Bay Lady, visit seattlesailingship.com.